All right. Hi, GM Sam.
Again,
Monk the next and Adule. What was it that you were saying first, Kenson?
I was saying that you know, you're real like with that conversation we had before that on YouTube and across the sphere, almost all the conversation's always about combat and min-maxing, but that's only a small part of the game, right? The real meat of the Dungeons and Dragons is the role-playing part, right? If you want to play combat all the time, you'd play a video game. And I think like you are
Or
very
a war
good.
game. Play a
Or a
war
board game. Right. You can play a war game. Like I play Warhammer when I want to do that, right?
game.
So I think the whole reason why people enjoy Dungeons and Dragons the most, they might think they join it for the combat, but that's not why they stay, right? If it was only combat, people would play nothing but a one shot or whatever, and then they would move on. People stay in a campaign for years on end because of how their characters are involved in the story, how their character grows, how the world around them is impacted by their decisions.
Right.
I mean, look at all the times that I had a character do something just absurd, like walk into a town with a zombie following him and not understand why everybody was upset about it. And
Right.
then the repercussions that came from it. And that's the best fun. Like the most fun we've had in a lot of our campaigns is when we end a combat doesn't even happen because of some crazy thing that we did to prevent it, or we find a solution that had nothing to do with this big fight that may have been brewing because it's more human. It's more, not for a lack of a saying it's human, but it's more real. Like it gets people involved in it. It gets the characters into the story. I see
Right.
that, buddy. No, it's awesome.
Well, and what were you saying, Adule?
I was, saying or kind of wanting to know more about why you got into being a game master anyway, and like
Well,
you
okay,
managed to
okay, go ahead.
work. Oh, I was saying how you managed to work well with newbies while working with people like on the same game that are not new who know it well. You're really great at balancing it out.
Well, with and thank you. And by the way, thank you for this idea of just talking about D&D in general. And I happen to wear the appropriate shirt for the day, right? As far as
Yeah,
your
he did.
as far as your
That is true too. I didn't even realize that.
and as far as your comment about min-maxing, I can min-max the heck out of a character and still play a character, not just a Uber thing. So
Right.
Warlocks we know in 2014, 2024 are really strong. And that's probably my favorite class outside of Wizards. I'm a huge caster.
Yeah, me too.
I was playing a Warlock about a year ago before I went completely full time online here. And I realized we had killed a dragon, and I'm like, I'm making steaks. Let's go get the barbecue sauce. We're making steaks.
That's awesome.
And then I realized I'm going to change one of my feats or one of my feats, my level 8 feat, and it's going to be chef
I love it.
because A, it has a benefit. It does.
Yep.
But B, it adds to the game. So as
It's
far as
just fun.
I can build a character that has 13 cantrips level 1, especially in 2024. Holy cow. All the
Right.
you can do because it has an invocation that gives you another origin feat. It's like, okay, I'll take magic initiate.
Twice.
Yeah. You
Like that was insanity. When I was looking at that, I'm like, that is too much even for me. Because I
well,
do like making
I
powerful
said
characters, but come
13,
on.
more like 9. It's actually more like 9. I'm
Yeah, but you could literally have a warlock now that has shield and has guidance. Like that's crazy.
I always had guidance in Spirit of the Dying when I played 2014 Warlocks. That was
Yeah.
there. It's like, hey, so and so fell down. We can't heal him. Spirit of the Dying. Who's next? And and just continue on like that. But
Right.
so you were mentioning the role play. Yes, it's important role play, and that's where the even if I didn't pick up the chef feat, I still was role playing. Hey, we got some mistakes, y'all. And you know what?
Right.
You know what I could do with these this tail right here? Mm-mm. But you can have the most min-max character, but you gotta role play. So here's another example. I went to Adventures League, very first time, and they're like, "Oh, this and that and that and this," and I'm like, "Well, I have an 8th level paladin. Can I play him?" They're like, "Yeah." So I'm playing, and then we got into a well, I forget what it was. A phase spider. We caught it. We caught it mid phase. And I ran up to it and I'm like, do we have flanking? And he goes, yeah. I said, okay. Flank and then hit, smite, broken as paladins were back then. Hit again, smite, and I'm hitting it with upcast smites, roll all these dice and kill it. And they're like, the hell did you
There
just
goes the paladin stuff. Yeah.
that's next character? However, when it came time for them to come through and they see a female drow who's all trussed up and stuff, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's a drow!" Blah 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 blah, and I'm like, "She's tied up, guys. Cut her down. Give me your water skin. Give her some water." Playing a paladin, a holy warrior.
Yep. Yep.
She's like, "Oh, thank you so much." Gave us a whole bunch of information. She goes, "By the way, up there is some treasure. You guys can have it for rescuing me." And the other players are like, again, I'm like, you can play a really strong character,
And
but you
still role play.
don't play a character. So, like, min-maxing drives me nuts because what it does, and I say nuts, I mean, that's probably not the right phrase. It puts me in as a GM in a position where I have to challenge that character and I have to challenge the party.
Right.
Otherwise, the character is just going to Cuisinart through everything.
Right.
However, and this is touching on Odule, is it also puts the newer players in a position where they feel like, man, how do I keep up with this?
Right.
And where and you see how I worked my way into that, Odule?
That was
Where
a good segue.
you have to teach the new
I like
player.
that.
Say again, Odule?
I said I like how you did that.
Yeah. You have to teach that new player how to keep up. So the GMs, there's certain things that I don't want to be responsible for, but I am as a GM. For example, you got to know your character. You got to know what they do. They got to know your spell. So the players have to take some time, even if it's just an hour before the game or an hour during the week. Look at your character. Look at all the abilities. Take a few minutes before the game. Know what they are, especially if we're starting a combat that we had let off from last time or an encounter and we just paused. So take the time and do that. But even then, it's a new player. So you have to teach them. And you also have to teach them to the what's it called? You have to teach them how to play that character. So a good GM that's a teacher as well will sit there and say, well, what do you think about doing it this way? Because you have this ability. Just cast minor illusion, trick that guard. There's a little squirrel rolling over there, and he can squirrel, and it's like, oh, and then you guys just slip past him. So things like that. And if you don't take the time, I've sat in a game and watched people just sit there in a corner. Back in 2015, I was one of the first game masters for Festival in the Forest. It's a local con that they actually do as a camping outing. And in that, this one girl came up and she was complaining that her rogue didn't do anything. She just sat there and she was already sour. And she had been playing a long time with her husband. She's been playing for 2 decades.
Oh man.
So I sat there and I looked at my module. I'm like, changing this. So they were supposed to fight a bloodroot. It's this creature that poisoning the forest, and that was the whole thing, was just going in and stopping this plague that's hurting the forest. Festival in the Forest. Anyway, they get there, and as they're digging it out, they find a passageway. And she goes, "Oh, okay." And they start going in there, and I said, "Now it turns into worked stone," and her eyes light up. And I said, "There's a door at the end of the hallway." She goes, "I want to check for traps." Yep, there's one right there. I'm going to use sleight of hand. Sleight of hand, you find a trap. Or, excuse me, check for traps, finds it. I'm going to use sleight of hand to disarm it. You disarm it, and you rolled a nat 20. So you actually have the trap in your pocket. It's a little poison bag. So now she has poison for her blade or whatever. If she wants to throw it or whatever.
Making sure everybody's involved.
To keep her involved. Now, I did other things for the other players too, but the whole point is that you want everybody to be able to do something that keeps them involved. And if you don't do that, you'll lose that player. And that includes role play,
Right.
i.e. hitting a player with a door. It gets them involved. It wakes them up. Be quiet.
Or
Or just comes
is
off.
that what we're doing? Is
Hit
that
him with
what
a
we're
door.
doing?
Wow.
I was gonna say, like, one of the things that I as a noob, I noticed, and it was very cool, was that, like, it really is interesting because I didn't understand how roles played a role in the story, but they really do. Like, if you're an illusionist and you just say, I'm going to distract
No Parkinson's.
If you're in a loop and you're like, oh, I'm gonna distract this monster with, like, I think you told a story about somebody using like a slice of cake, but that the roll is what determines if that piece of cake works.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes the story that much more interesting because no matter how outrageous, like if I come in and I say, "Oh, I'm going in guns a blazing with a cannon," and it's in any real world scenario, it would be impossible for this person to avoid this cannon. But
But hey, sometimes we gotta
if
go
the
that
role
way.
says that,
Sometimes we gotta go.
right, and it's like if the role says no, then the role says no, and so you're like, "Oh wait, I was so sure," and I didn't
Oh, I see.
understand that going into the game how the roles really play a role in the story.
Right, and I get that, and you're actually segueing into another thing I was talking about. Frustration is a real thing, and there's going to be frustration with the GM. There's going to be frustration with the players, and the one thing a lot of people don't realize is that gaming is a relationship between the GM and the players, because you're trusting me to entertain you at a level that keeps you involved and makes you feel good after you're done. I'm trusting you guys to participate and create a safe. That's one another thing. I have to create a safe space for everybody. You guys maintain the safe space between each other and for myself, because we all have things, and we're just playing a game. Social issues, political politics, get the hell out. We're playing a game.
It's an escape for a reason. People do this to escape all that.
Right. And
Yeah.
mhm. And the when frustration starts to occur, you have to turn your patience meter has to go up. And if it means you have to repeat something 3 times, then you
What you
repeat it.
do.
But the
Yep.
cool thing is about, especially about the group that we're in now, is that we have these different personalities that can explain things different ways. When Gorash is around, Gorash has a very quiet voice, very soothing voice. The way she explains things is really cool. Um, Monk, the next over here, to the point and direct. So in me, I try to find that happy medium, but it does what the point is, and it doesn't matter. The point is that you can work together as a group to maintain that healthy gaming relationship
Yep.
and being honest with each other. You know what? I didn't like that, or I didn't understand that, and that doesn't make any sense. And there's a couple players in this group right now that are straight up like, I don't understand it, and I don't like that, but that's the way it happened, and
Yeah.
How
but that's
time?
honest. That's honest. Say that again, Adule.
I said, oh, a couple, just
A couple.
a couple of us.
I'm trying to. No, I mean, but there has been a couple of people like, oh man, that sucked. And Vespa too. She's like, man, that sucked. And
Right.
I heard about it later. But then I have to explain this is the way it works. And
Right.
if I roll and we're getting away. I haven't forgotten your other question, by the way, Adule, um, about how I started. The whole thing is, some players want to be the hero and that nothing goes wrong for them. Or in other times, there's a hero that shows up and they already have a story, a long backstory. I'm like, when did that happen? You're level 1 or even level 5. When did all that happen? Like, I am general of so and so, so. I'm like, I didn't see that in your backstory. When did that happen? Because if you're level 1, either you're an older person who just been a noble or a merchant, and you just said, I'm gonna pick up a sword or I'm gonna pick up a wand, and Leviosa. How does it go? Because I might have said that wrong.
When
Leviosa.
Guardian,
Oh, see, I didn't have it right.
Leviosa. Anyway.
Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Okay. Emphasis on the I and the A. Got it.
You want some?
And but at the same time, again, patience. You have to be patient with them, and then questions, not statements. Ask questions. So when did that happen? How does that work? How does that affect the story? And then let the player explain it to you and let them think. And don't get it twisted. I've run into some situations where okay, I just gotta figure this out. And you've seen me pause. You've seen me get quiet and pause. Because in my head, I'm like, okay, how do I fix that? How do I get through this? What do I do about that? Oh, just kill just kill Macchiato. It's fine. But
Oh, Macchiato, my boy. My poor boy died so many times.
that's a joke. But
Yeah. I know.
again, it's all about a gaming relationship. And
Right.
if you've ever seen the Lord of the Rings movies, those nine
Yeah.
guys, they had a relationship. They have different,
Yep.
and there was a relationship that was built and a measure of trust to complete the goal of getting the ring to Mordor. Which, by the way, they could have just used ego, flew the thing, and dropped it in the volcano. But whatever.
Yeah, the Eagles show up at the end. I'm like, oh, well, that would have been easy. I always could have dive bombed that thing right in and
I
probably
mean,
was done, huh?
according to lore, they didn't want to be involved. Then why were they in Minas Tirith? What's up?
Right. And why did they show up at the end? Yeah, exactly. They didn't want to get involved until it was too late.
Or-
Got it.
But wherever. Anyway, that's
You're going to, I'm about to say, y'all just went on a whole tangent.
Oh, sorry. I read what that was like one of my big entries into fantasy as a kid because I read Lord of the Rings when I was like a young kid. And
now.
then it actually scared my elementary school teachers because they were like, you shouldn't be able to read these things. And my parents were like, oh, I'll tell you.
Check this out. That's how I started in the genre. See how I fit this in? Segue into this.
Nice.
Back when I was 7, 8 years old, the Lord of the Rings movies came out on TV. Now I had already been watching Godzilla. I'd already
You mean the cartoon one? The cartoon one?
I had already been I had already watched what's the name of it? Godzilla and other things on TV because Monster Saturday and whatever.
Yes, I remember those. Oh,
Star Blazers, which is Spaceship Yamato.
yes, I love Star Blazers back in the day. I still like it.
So it was that whole love of fantasy and sci-fi was
Yep.
cultivated in me just by that.
Yes.
Over time, I had then watched The Hobbit, which is basically a musical back then. And
Such a
then
good movie.
the movie Wizards had come out, which is a
Mhm.
very, very mature, but very good story. Very good.
Agreed.
You ever get a chance to pick up Wizards? You'll see it. The evil guy is a skeleton arms, basically. Then you have
Highly
a
recommend.
good wizard has a big, big nose. But that was good. And then in 1986, I happened to be in the school library in El Paso, Texas, and I saw the cover of this book. And there's a girl standing behind a little boy with either a short sword or a dagger, and a ranger basically with an arrow. As something was you can't see what's coming towards him, but you can see what's coming. I'm like, that was my mouth. And I picked up the book and I took it home and I read it in a week.
Yep.
It was the Elfstones of Shannara. And
Oh, that's awesome.
holy cow, this is good. And the book may not have made it back to the library. And
Wow.
I have since lost it, but
The secret come out.
but I went ahead and bought another one. But anyway, either way, and now I have the whole series pretty much,
Awesome.
including when you realize that there's a sci-fi element to it. But anyway, the whole I'm sorry. So I got plugged in. And then in 1988, still in Paso, Texas, I'm staying with a friend of mine. The personal reasons I'm not going to get into, but I was staying at my friend's house, and he's like, "You want to play a game?" I said, "Sure." And he pulls out. Hold on a second. I know I'm moving away from the camera.
Oh, you're gonna pull out your OG box, aren't you?
So he pulls out this book. Oh yeah, this thing.
Nice.
And we start playing, and I made a character named Odali. Now, in Spanish, Odale is a phrase like Odale, like that's cool. So I made him Odali. So I was down there, Paso, Texas, with the Mexican culture as a Puerto Rican,
Awesome.
using their phraseology, their dialect to create.
Yeah.
And if you've ever read my profile, it says that it actually back when I was on that old platform, it said that very first thing was what really happened in my first session with him. All he did was I told him what I wanted to do. He said, roll a die. I rolled a 14. I still remember what I rolled. He says, okay, you slide behind him, get up and hit him. I'm like, oh, and it was the coolest thing. I was a dude in that in one of those stories.
Right.
It just took off from there. and I put it down for a while, and then I got back into it in 91, 92. My then wife, who started playing with me, and her cousin and another friend, and I ran a campaign for them. And then I went to the army and picked up the second edition rule set for D&D, and just and it just grew and grew and grew. And over time, I got into third edition, played fourth one time, I wasn't really into it.
We don't need to talk about fourth.
And then I went to fifth, and fifth being what it is, it's not second. Second is where my heart is, even though I don't like Thaco at all anymore. I think the D20.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But because there was so much, I guess I could do this. I could do this. Hold on. Let me get rid of the background. And and then this thing grew. There it is. So edition stuff right there, and then the first edition books, which I've never played first edition, but I own it. So because you got to collect it. And then third edition is right there. So you got first, second, third, and you know, now as far as what was the other part of your question? Why I play it? Because it's fantasy, it's fun. I get to go be something that I can never do in real life, like cast fireball, which fireball is not a good spell. My
Well, I mean, you can cast fireball in real life. It's a shot, but you can do it.
That's true. Yeah, you
You
can
know.
cast it. All right.
I get a Molotov, right?
Horace Rod just cried when you said fireball wasn't a good spell.
Backblast area all clear and press the button on the AT4. But anyway, the the love of fantasy, the love of different things, and it really got better for me when Lord of the Rings came out in 2000, because then got home from where I was in Austin, Texas. I was actually at a gaming convention. I used to run a website called yopowergamers.com about Ultima Online, and I got to go there free because I was one of the influencers. I was one of the original influencers of Dule back then.
Oh, out here.
But
Trin said,
not through video, mainly vlogging.
Oh, Ultima Online. I remember those days. I remember it.
And by the way, I am in a book. My name is in a book, and my website's in a book about Ultima Online. But you can find that on Amazon if you're interested. But that's
I think I know that book.
So that said, the whole oh yeah, and then I started teaching my kids how to play, and they liked it. My son to this day is a really good GM, really, really good GM. My daughter, if she decides to play, is an amazing voice actor. She's really, really good at it. However, to your point, and third question I think you had was how I'm able to get players involved and all that, because I'm story centric. I used to be with third edition that guy that built those insanely powerful characters, and that was boring because it just turns out into all I'm chasing is numbers. I'm not chasing the story anymore.
Right. That was my point. Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
much as I like, because I have two war games on I got Middle Earth Battle Game over there, and I got Song of Ice and Fire. Those are my two of my favorites. Well, the only two I own, but they are my favorites for their own reasons, because the IP is amazing. The stories are amazing when J.R.R. Martin decides to finish the gosh darn.
Right, if he ever finishes it.
Anyway, the I want to tell stories, and I'm going to be honest with you. Most of the time, I am a terrible player. I am a terrible player because I'm too judgmental. Because I have such a high standard for myself as a GM that I unfairly expect the same of other GMs, and that's not the way it works. You play the game as it is, and
I could see that.
and then you help grow that game through that GM by being a good player. And I had to learn that the hard way, because there's been a couple of times I've been asked to leave because I'm a little bit too, and that's not fair to the GM. So since that, I've played in some games and I've humbled myself. I still play my characters. I still do really silly, stupid things. But no. That's not how it works. And it really wasn't about the rules. It was not about the rules because I was not the rules lawyer. I was more of the game management. Like, your game sucks, dude. Because rules are rules. It is whatever. The interpretation of the rules, I don't care. It's when you let a player sit there and don't say nothing to that person, I have a problem with. It's when you let another player take over the game as a rules lawyer and you say nothing to him. That's when I start to get upset. And then I had to no, do that. So being that bad player that I was for a minute, more than a minute, but long enough, I realized it's how do I fix that with my games? Keep them involved. Make it interesting. Flow with them, not with me. If that
Right. Yep. That's exactly what you do. Now,
so
I have a question for you,
yeah.
kind of segueing from what you've been talking about. So we're talking about earlier about how sometimes like when you have characters that, you know, play a warlock mixed with a rogue, so they have 4 attacks in a turn. Um,
I was talking
when
about.
you have characters like that, right? Do you feel that in 2024, do you think do you think they balanced the characters enough for newer players to be able to keep up with that? Because I feel like that was kind of their point, right? Because every character now seems like they've got a bigger toolkit that's a little bit easier for them to compete with people who have been playing it for 20 years that
Uh,
know how the system works.
I think it's a mixed answer.
Okay.
2024 is easier to get into. The way
Yeah.
the character, because of the way the book is structured, 2024, it's easier to build a character. That part, because it literally walks you through all the steps. It breaks it down for you. But the complexity is higher because
Okay.
at just weapon mastery by itself, you
Yeah.
um,
Agreed.
create a level of complexity because now, wait, I gotta hit with the short sword first, then the long sword, and then I change and I hit with my axe.
Right.
So you have that level of complexity that actually raises the bar for newer players. And it's like if you've noticed since we started doing that, a lot of players are like, "Whoa, hold up! What do you mean?" I said, for as a GM, again, I have to teach. I have to say you have to attack with in order to do what you're telling me to do, excuse me, in order to do what your intention is, you have to follow this progression.
Order of operations. Yeah.
We have to follow the order operation doesn't work. It's kind of like casting. So the the so so again, it's a mixed answer as far as um what is it called? The level of complexity. So I think 2024 is harder for players to grasp when they get past the character creation. When you get
Like
past
once we're actually playing the actual game.
it gets harder because also they changed the way magic works. And if you don't read it right and you miss one word, especially when it comes to the magic casting part, you'll confuse it and you're like, well, why can't I do that with as a bonus action?
Right.
Bonus action part of casting confuses everybody the first time.
Hmm.
Well, I'm saying everybody, but mainly new players. And Adula, you and I have had that conversation several times, and this is not an insult.
That
It's just facts that it does confuse
The
everybody.
way it's written is confusing, the way they wrote it.
And now that they've made it a spell slot, you know,
Right.
like you can I can't the things that I could do in 2014 I can't do here because if you
Yeah.
once you use a spell slot, that's it. You cannot cast another spell. Period.
Right. You're out. You can't even use action surge to do it.
Now, here's where it's different, which a lot of people, or excuse me, people need to be aware of, is that if you have an ability or a feat or something that says you can cast this without using a spell slot,
Right. I was going to ask you about that. Does that still follow the same order
it's
of
still,
operation?
well, let's say I have a bonus action that I can, like I have Misty Step.
Right.
Normally, no abilities attached, you use a spell slot. Misty Step,
Right.
port away, shoot my bow. If it's an ability like Raven something, I forget what it is, but even though it's not,
Or even as an elf, elves just get it now. Elves can just get it.
let's say elves get that, and elves get Misty Step, and they port away. I used a bonus action to cast a spell that didn't use a spell slot. I still have a magic.
Right. Got it.
People
I
don't.
thought so too when I read it. I was like, oh man.
But but that's getting beyond the what we're talking about. Adule, what was your other question? I think I missed something. How I started, or I think I covered that, right?
yeah, you know, you answered my questions.
Okay. So no, Sonia, we're actually doing something different. We're participating in a discussion about D&D. You guys want to fill her in real quick? You guys put it really, I like the way you guys presented it.
Yeah, like we're just doing a like a since everybody had to kind of drop for different reasons, we're just doing a quick little video that like Sam could post as like what separates him as a DM from everybody else. Because like I was saying, like, you know, Sam really gets everybody involved in the story. The characters have an impact on the world and the story. It's not just about the combat all the time and things like that. And then we Adua was asking like how he got into it and why he became a GM and what inspired him and stuff like that. because it's just that kind of information I think is lacking out there. Because you go on YouTube, it's all about how to build the most powerful character, but it's not about how do you play that character outside of the
Right.
combat. Like, what is that character really about? Like, how do you incorporate that into a story that drives the world and the universe you're creating forward? Which is what keeps people, as
Mhm.
far as I'm concerned, keeps people in the games. If I just wanted to, do as much damage as I could, I would just, open up a game like Baldur's Gate or something and then be done with it, right? Like I play
Mhm.
these games because you're involved. The story moves forward, and the most fun we ever have in these games is not even from combat. It's the crazy stuff that we've done that avoids the combat, like
Yeah.
a dance battle with a bunch of pygmies that I'm sure had a stat block that we could have fought, but we didn't. Or when we randomly put a bunch of ogres to sleep and we never even fought them in a dungeon, and they're like, nope, 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 you're right, we're out, we're out. Nope, 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 we're good. Things like that. And we talk our ways, and involving the world. And combat's fun. Don't get me wrong. I like my combat, but it's that's the thing that keeps me playing in these games specifically, because he gets them all. Every character has a purpose. Every character is part of the world, part of the story.
Yeah.
And I think that's lacking out there in the YouTube sphere. When people start looking up D&D, nobody talks about that stuff.
Well, anyway,
So it's true.
Good.
And to add to that, as a person who is playing, and I've always been interested in D&D but had never played before, there's a craft to, teaching people
Mm-hmm.
while not it into the game is all about them learning. Everyone is still interactive. The game is still moving forward. And he's really good at it. I mean, like, I wanted to know also, like, have you ever had an all new, I guess, cast, like people who had never been in a D&D game ever, every single member of that episode or whatever, no one had ever played before? Have you had that, or is it
I
always
think
at least one?
I've had when most of them are new and one person was an expert with me to help me out. I think that's the most. I mean, I would love to do an all new game just to teach everyone. You know what? No, I take that back. I did do that. That was it when I was working as a school teacher. I was a health teacher. Yes. We had an after school program where we had a bunch of kids. We had to teach them how to play. And that was it. That was an exercise in itself. And kids are amazing. They have the most amazing personalities. They do the weirdest things. There's no limits to their imagination. And I'm going to throw a rock at his head. Okay. Did it hit him? We'll roll a d20, add your range modifier. What's my range modifier? Add your proficiency and add your thing. Oh man, did I hit him? Yeah, you hit him and you knocked him down. He's like, oh God, my head hurts and this and that. Oh, okay. I'm going to come up and I'm going to tackle him. All right. Players don't think like that. Players say, I'm going to pull my sword, I'm going to run up and hit him, or I'm going to cast fireball at that guy. So
Right.
different. The kids have as much as they have an imagination, it's based on reality. I'm sorry, that's not accurate. It's based on the reality that they know. So some kids are all in on the sword and the magic. Other kids are like, I'm just gonna hit you with a brick and be done with it, or I'm gonna take the shoe and throw it at you like my mama does it to me. Jokes. But
It ain't no.
you know, yes. So the answer to your question is yes, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
So, like, it when you decide like who's going to be in a game,
Mhm.
or is it just kind of like, people can join as long as there's slots open?
Yes, that is correct. As long as I have a slot open, you can join. I'm most of the time I'll sit, like 99% of the time I'll sit with the player, and basically we're interviewing each other. As far as this particular thing, um, at places like Adventure League in stores, they don't do that. You come in, you sit down, and you play. It doesn't matter who you are. In an environment like this where it's online, I have to interview the person because people behind the screen and behind the keyboard, they tend to act a little different. Sometimes they act out of pocket. So I have to protect the integrity of that game. So I have
It's
to
true.
interview the person and get to know them. And for the most part, I've only had one player. Actually, I've had four players, three of which
Okay.
I had to kick. One person left on their own since I've started this. I mean, in the time that I've been online,
Uncle gets some.
it's over a
I
year.
got you more tomato.
I'm gonna mute you. A year and a quarter. I've had to excuse more players than I had in the last decade because it's different. I am exposed to more people. So and I'm adding this because I want people to be aware that as far as my table is concerned, I have to make sure you're a good fit. And if you're not, I'll work with you because you can always cultivate a player to be a fit, but you can't make them. If that makes sense. If they're not a fit, they're not a fit. Goodbye.
Makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean, I miss our friend from Europe actually Asia. He was a good player. I liked him a lot, and he was a fit.
Yeah, I liked him too.
Yeah, he was a really good player. He was a really good fit. But there was another person that anything that happened in the game just didn't work for the player, and then eventually they decided to leave, and that was the end of it. So not everybody's a fit for your table, and that's okay. And it's okay to say no. It's absolutely okay to cadence. No, say, you know what? I don't think I'm a good fit for you. And the other thing, Adule, to your question about anybody can join, depends on the game too. I run horror as well. That's not for everyone. And I run two kinds of horror. I run Victorian fantasy, kind of like I forgot the name of it, but it's basically, Dracula and werewolf and all that stuff. That level of fantasy, and it can get pretty, slasher level. And then I also run Alien RPG. That's pretty slasher level too, or sci-fi horror. And then I have Walking Dead and Blade Runner. And Blade Runner is a different kind of. That's more of a mental type of trauma thing. It's not for everybody. It's really not. And once people start to tell you what some of their triggers are, and I use that word, and it's probably not the accurate word, things that they're not comfortable with. You just have to be honest with them. Say, you know what, I don't know if that's the right game for you. Are you okay with that? And then if they say, yeah, so we'll give it a shot. So far, it's worked, except for those 4 people. The so and even when they get in the game and they start to become challenging, like, let me see if I can work with this, and then we'll go on. And sometimes I'll have conversations with them on the side, like, dude, don't do that. That's not cool. Don't do that. So anyway, sorry, I got long in the tooth again.
No, but I think that makes a good point, though, right? Because what's going to make certain people better at this than others in this field is who can adjust based on the different personalities we have, especially in this day and age, right? I think it's important that people hear that, because people sometimes, I mean, there's always this negative connotation that still always permeates role-playing games, even in 2024. There's a lot more when I was a kid. Well, because I'm 41, but I've been playing role-playing games like my whole as a kid too, right? Like I played early D&D as well when I was young, and it's always been the stereotype of like the shy or the more outcast kid or whatever, and that's not really the case anymore.
Boy, it
But
never
then
was. It
it
just
never was. That was the but that was like the mystique behind it, right? Well, of course, in the 80s, they thought it was like devil worship and everything else. But point being is like it also is, though, a way for people that normally don't do stuff like this. And I think the benefit of having this online now, and the thing that coronavirus kind of allowed GMs to expand into what's happened now, to where there are people that love playing D&D, they will never go to an actual table because they have they're socially maybe not comfortable, but this teaches people to kind of come out of their skin a little bit, to come out of their comfort zone, to engage with people in a different way. And I think it's a huge benefit to a lot of people in that regard. If you find somebody like yourself that can get people to do that, because I've seen you work with players that are still kind of, I don't say shy, but just not very vocal, or don't really know fully how to interact with others. And then you bring that out of them. And that's coming from your teacher's background more than anything else, because I can see that being reflected. But I think this is a great resource for people. And I think a lot of people don't think of it that way. I think this is a way people can recover from different kinds of trauma or different kinds of issues that they've had their whole life. It can be used that way, because I've seen it be used that way in the past, that I think people just think it's a game, and it is a game, but it also helps people.
Yeah. Sonia, did you have any input or questions?
I one thing I do like is that you're pretty open with the story too. So if we're not feeling it or whatever, we can go to Hawaii if we so choose. One game that is a specific
Um,
reference, actually. I don't even remember where we were at. We were in some heavy, thick graveyard. All magic was not able to be used. We
Right
were in
there.
a bad way. Okay.
That's where you guys were.
Is that where we were?
This,
Okay. Yeah. It was not a nice place. And we were just like, you know
and
what?
everybody was a
Forget
caster.
it.
no,
And forget it. We're done and we've had enough and we want to go home. And we just split the other direction and we forgot the whole story and we just like went. Yeah. So
It's awesome.
it's pretty, even if we come to a dead end in the story in any way, we'll just like right around and then do something else. So that's
so you guys went from right here, there, and decided you wanted to go to Hawaii all the way over there.
Dimension Door is a hell of a spell.
Oh, that was more than or teleport. No,
yeah, it was
the reference Sonya's making is I was running a game in Cormanthier in Mr. Noir. It's a game that I've been wanting to run, and the story got bogged down, and the players were like, you know what, we're done with this place, like she was saying. And they had one of the sub quests or missions or whatever you want to call it was to return a crown to Evermeet, which is basically the Forgotten Realms version of the Grey Havens of the Lord of the Rings. And she's like, they're all like, we're going to Hawaii. And I'm like, we grab these stack of books, put them over on the shelf, and let's keep going. And that's being flexible.
Mhm.
Game masters get disappointed. That's no lie. They get disappointed. They do prep and they put all this stuff together, and it's like, okay. And you just have to.
There's a couple of times that happened where you had like a big boss battle set up like that big snake that one time. We're like, no, we won't go in there. And you're like, you sure you don't want to go in there? You sure? You sure
Well,
you don't
that
want to go in there?
in those situations, I'm trying to entice you guys to want to go.
Right, right. Sure. There's probably some cool stuff in there.
No, I mean, so to qualify the whole disappointment thing, yes. So I wanted to run the map that's behind me. I wanted to run that game. So that as a GM, we all have our egos, we all have our pride, and for the sake of the players in the game, you have to swallow that and go. So you have all these modules, um, you know, like you have the Dragonlance module. Okay, I mean it's pretty linear. What's going on, what's happening, and this is where you guys were talking about.
I
Um,
do want to. I do want to play Dragonlance again. I love that series.
and if you sit there and just no, you guys can't go to Mistledale. You have to stay over here in the Dark Woods, or even in the Beast Marches in Mr. Nor. You cannot go anywhere else. That's every game that you've played online where you reach the end of the world. You're kind of like, it's so
Yeah,
there, and I can't go over there. Conan
yeah,
Exiles, you literally die if you try to go past the thing. It
yeah.
kills you off.
I remember that.
So, you have to be flexible as a GM to just let it happen if that's what you want. But I mean, I've seen Curse of Strahd just fall off the rails because people are they want to the GM wants you to stick to the story and there's nothing else for you to do, and they're like, that sucks. Let me do something. And
Yeah.
West March's style of play is basically open. You guys go somewhere, the GM rolls a die or has something in mind and he presents it, and then that's what happens. There can
Now I do. Oh,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Adule.
well, I was going to ask another question. Now that you're kind of going into this part of the whole um GM world, so like, is that how it is though? Is it that you all as a GM, you already have it where if you don't make the roll, if you don't make the con save, as an example, this is what's going to happen. If they do make the con save, this is what's going to happen. Or is it really just you're always being kind of imaginative yourself as the game is going along? So do you actually decide on something based off of what we are saying. Like, you know how we always make jokes like, "Oh, why did you say that? Now he's gonna think to do that." But or were you already thinking that, or did you already have that written down somewhere, kind of thing?
It depends. And it is again, as all my answers normally are, it's complicated as far as it's really this. So let's say you cast Blight, okay, and Blight does something to you, or no, how about curse? Bestow curse. I'll use that. So I'm going to curse you as a player. You make your save, nothing happens. That's simple. Bestow curse kicks in. You're now cursed. I can just read what's in the book and says this is what it says, or I can give a description. Your eyes start to turn black. You start your skin starts to come closer to you, and it's becoming stretched across your skull, and you start to feel a certain way about people and everybody around you, like, you know what, and you know it just so one of the key things is describe, don't tell. You're cursed. Okay, I'm cursed. And then you
Right. Then it's just a status effect. It
That's
doesn't have any impact.
right. So you describe it. So that's the storytelling part, is you describe what happens to the player. And now, because it's a partnership, which is what I talked about earlier, is that now it's on the player to describe how they're feeling about it and how they react to it. Emma on Sunday mornings is very good at that. Sonya's other character on Strahd, Ravenloft. She's going crazy because things are the way they are in the world. Otherwise, she could just go, I don't care. I just rolled a 20, I saved, or I rolled a 1. Okay, I failed. My character's this, but she plays it out. So it's that give and take partnership. Now, more directly to your question is yes, sometimes I already have something in mind, and other times I'm like, you know what if it's this way? And I'll just go with that. And then I'll throw that on the table. And a lot of times your reaction to something was because it was something like sometimes you guys are like, oh man, what just happened? You guys have had that in the Saturday morning game. That's something I just made up right off the top because it's what's the phrase? It's not improv. It's something that happens just out of nowhere. Spontaneous.
It's spontaneous, yeah.
Spontaneous. It's natural. It just comes out and then it just rolls out and then it snowballs into that explosion of like, oh my gosh. And you know, and we just have fun with it. And as those a lot of those things have been like the whole ogre thing, they weren't there. They're like, you guys are getting bored. I'm gonna throw something at you. There you go. And
Or
then
the doors.
the
The
ogre,
ogre thing was one of the best things.
that was just
Like
I threw it in
that
there.
was so good. That was so good.
And
I
then
still
you're
remember
like,
that.
sleep, and they're like, you're like, and you snuck past it.
Yeah, we didn't even have to engage in them.
Was I disappointed that you guys didn't engage? No, you solved it. It's fine. That was okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the big story thing
Problem.
describing about Cormanthe or Mr. Nor earlier, that's my pride, that's my ego. Let that go. In that particular situation, it was just something for you guys to do, just to break. And that's the other thing, Adule, and this does goes to your question. GMs sometimes have to break up the flow because you could start to do this and people start to nod off and you don't
Just get autopilot.
right. So it's like, let me break this up and do this. And sometimes players can do that too. I've had actual players say, you know what, I kicked the door open. Because while they're talking for 20 minutes about is it trapped? Is it have anything in it? Blah blah blah. Break it open. Nope, it wasn't
Yeah.
trapped, but that orc was waiting for you. Initiative. So you know, it just boom, here comes some action, and it's kind of cool.
That's
Right.
what does a lot.
That's what
That's just because I'm impatient. I just don't have the patience anymore. I'm 44 years old. I'm over it. Okay. Listen, we got
I
to kick
didn't
some
know
doors
that.
in.
What do you-
I'm old. I didn't have
Yeah.
enough
My
coffee.
knees hurt. I haven't had my coffee yet.
Just
My
gotta
back
How
is
old?
out.
How old is
I got
Fran?
time for this.
How does what?
How old is Fran?
Fran feels like she's, she's in her 30s still though.
Oh,
She's spicy.
She's not there yet.
She's spicy. She's not at the, she was just born that way though.
yeah,
you know.
she's just feisty, not fed up. I
So
get
when
it.
she
So-
gets into her 40s, she's probably gonna have to go solo
Sam,
because
have
she's
you
just gonna be
ever
too intolerable.
thought about, and this is not anything right away, but have you ever thought about maybe next year, if any of your players are like, you know what, I want to run the one shot and have Sam be a player and you could actually help them learn how to be a GM.
Ooh.
Because I've been debating that myself. I've never actually been a GM, but you know me, I like to go on my little story dissertations, and I'm like, I feel like
That's
that
fine.
could be fun, but I've never done it.
It could be. I mean,
It could be like a DM to DM night or something, right? Like,
advice for any new GMs is have zero expectations. Zero. No expectations.
yeah,
Here's what I want to do. Put it on the table, let the players react, and then you go accordingly. Um, don't and stop running to the internet for an answer. And here's
right.
there's plenty of good websites, there's plenty of good blogs, there's plenty of good facts out there, FAQs, where you could get answers to certain questions. What I'm talking about is like, well, my players, they said they had a good time, but I don't know if I did that right. Shut up.
Oh gosh, they had a good time. Done.
Shut up. Stop. And I've said this, in the last video that I did, the public video that I did. I did a little PSA at the end. You don't need affirmations. You don't need anybody to justify the way you run your game.
Right.
It is not for everyone. Some people do not find it funny when the fourth wall is broken. And fourth wall being, oh, he grabs his wand and he casts fireball from it, and then Adule goes Leviosa. That's not even in the D&D game. It's from Harry Potter. We just well, but it's funny. It's fun.
Right.
It was great. Who
Yep.
cares? Some people are offended by that. And it's like, stop it.
Just
So
have fun.
then they'll come back to social media pages and say, oh my gosh, this happened. They were laughing, but I don't know if that was right for my game. They broke character. Shut up. Just play.
Just roll with it.
Play and don't and the thing is, what kills me is that trust your players. Talk to your players about what's going on. When you go on social media, you're depending on a bunch of strangers to give you an answer, and you're going to get flamed. You're going to get
Yeah.
criticized. You're going to get called weak.
Yep.
It's always that one person that all they're going to do is troll you.
Every time.
You feel bad, and then yeah, you screwed up, and they're doing that just because their life is terrible. They're miserable. They don't like
Well,
and
It's
they don't have any
taking a rise off of you.
dad or daddy or both, and
Yep.
that's what they're doing. So talk to your players. Find a friend that you can trust. Maybe even somebody that's outside of thing. Now, all of these situations that you may think you go through has already happened. It has already happened because D&D is 50 years old. No matter what you can think of, I swear to God, what you can think of, relationships, somebody being absolutely rude in the most vile way, the best times, or a mistake is made, it has already been done. Pick up a Dragon magazine. You'll probably find it in an issue in there. No, they'll present it in a way that's written in a high level,
Yep.
outside of the emotion. Go find a blog, go find a video. They're out there. You don't need someone else's affirmation of what's going on. And again, find that one friend who doesn't play D&D, said, hey, I have a player who's being really rude to everyone around me. That's that's a social situation. It doesn't matter that it's D&D. It doesn't matter if it's a board game night. It doesn't matter it's a bunch of friends that play golf together. It is still a situation about two players not getting along. How do I deal with it? There may be some D&D specific terms or things that are going on, but it's about the relationship. So focus on fixing the relationship versus getting hung up on the whole imposter syndrome thing. And it's stupid. And this goes for players too. Oh man, I made a mistake and I cast the wrong spell. Okay. You know
It
what?
happens.
You made a mistake and you partied instead of studying that night. You rolled a 1. Or yeah, you partied and you didn't study.
Right. Right.
That too. I mean, and it's all about the fun. I mean, that's the best way, because and what happens at your table is your business. It's nobody else's business.
Right.
Whatever kind of run, as long as the game is safe for the players that are at the table and that's what they agree to, that's between you and them. If you're running a game that is so socially deviant, I don't ever
Yeah.
care about it, and that's your personal business, because people do weird things behind closed doors.
Right.
people are consenting to that stuff and people are not getting hurt emotionally or physically, that I don't want to hear about it. I don't even want to know.
Right,
And
right. Do your thing.
and that's the other way. It's like, hey, this happened and this, and that's great. And I think people do it. They do it on social media again because they need that confidence. They need that information, or excuse me, they're looking for it. I don't think they need it. And the other thing is they want to celebrate something. They want other people to celebrate what's going on with them. And that's not a bad thing per se, but if it
Hmm.
becomes the focus of what you're
Right,
doing, my opinion, you're taking away from what you could be doing for your players.
right. And then at that point, it's just I think that's what stops people from having long-term games, because they're like, oh, it's just about them the whole time, right? And it's like I'm not actually the game is not about everybody else. Because I've seen games like that, like you said too, especially back in the day, in like the '90s, early 2000s and stuff. Especially that, like, again with that, face to face thing. You have some people that are just like myself included, right? I can be a talker and I can control a conversation, right? But then you have some people who are like DMs who are very much that direct, like outgoing, like kind of strong personalities. And then you have, like, going back to what I said before, if you have some of these people that are not used to that, it can be intimidating. And then the game seems like it's just a GM running a game for themselves,
Right.
right? It's
And
not about the players, like you said.
right. And then Adule or Sonia, you have something to add or ask?
On um the subject of people talking about their games online.
Just in anything. It doesn't have to be any specific thing we just talked about. Anything you have, you can think of as far as gaming is concerned. Or their thing is like, you're a great GM, Sam. Like, okay, thank you. I think, I don't know.
I like
We're
how
trying to get we're trying to give him the market himself.
I like how you did that. Sonia, that's his way of saying you can tell him how amazing of a GM he is.
Oh, stop.
Don't talk about that. Don't talk about
I'll say this though, you know, as a person who's never played the game other than with you all, I'm glad that you ended up being my GM because we've had our private calls. You'll sit the back behind and teach me more about my player, my characters, the way the game works. You've even shared with me when like I'm doing something too much. And you've always been very tactful in that approach, but still fun and cool and chill and everything. And so I appreciate that because I feel like I've learned a lot. I'm not I don't know that I would want to be a game master because I'm still not comfortable as a taught thing to really break out of a shell and get super creative. But I love that with Gorash and Vespa and even Jim, like how everyone will be so creative with what their characters are doing. And I'm like, I want to get to that level of just not caring. But I'm not fully out of my shell for that. But I think that you're great at getting new players in and getting them comfortable.
Right.
So, thanks.
What was that, Sonia?
What is your favorite type of game? Now, you did mention, just chilling. You do the rule of cool. That is one perk. I do like that. Where you can throw a brick and if you want instead of a
Or turn
fireball.
or turn or turn a giant boulder into a bowling ball and knock somebody over, and then make it go large again to crush them without ever actually having to fight them.
That was good. You guys did really good with that. That was impressive. I was
Yeah,
impressed.
that was a
Jem,
good
Jem pulled that out. I was like,
good use of that spell.
there's some inspiration right there. Go ahead, Sonia. What were you saying?
I was just saying, what is your preferred, I guess, maybe not favorite, type of game? You mentioned fourth wall, non-breakage of the fourth wall type
Well,
game. You have the ones that are silly, slappy.
It's really slappy.
I guess again, all of my answers are always never simple. Um, I like my Lord of the Rings to be true to the IP. I want to role play there. I want that to be that. because it's Tolkien. He's the grandfather of what we do as far as D&D is concerned. It's
Right.
we have elves, dwarves, and halflings and things like that. Even though they existed in the folklore, he put them in such a way that made it possible for people like Gygax, Arneson, and others to create what we have as far as role-playing games. Cormyrean Gambit, the one we play on Saturday morning, the way it is fine. I mean, there's a story there. You guys are playing it, and you guys do get serious. You guys are like, nah, no, they did not just attack this village. We're going to take them out. And then you find out there's a map that leads you to the drow, and you're like, oh, we're going to go after those dudes because they're behind the Zentarum, or their partners. We're going to take them both out. And
Right.
yeah, but at the same time, you can do really silly things. I'm going to reduce this into a bowling ball. I'm going to roll it down now.
Yep.
Big, let it sit on his chest. Like, holy cow. Okay. So it really depends. Alien RPG, it's science fiction. I like that. As far as cerebral games, Blade Runner. Something that makes you think. And Blade Runner is really all 90% of Blade Runner is role play. It's just role play. And character interactions. Walking Dead. Walking Dead, the show, the dead are just they're just out here. Everything that happens within each of the camps and everything and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with them.
Humans do when the whole world falls apart. That's the
Yeah. Yep.
else around that. It's just theater. It's like, for example, you're driving a car, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a drunk driver hits you. That's terrible. That's tragic. That is also life. You're out there and you're harvesting food. All of a sudden, you go to reach into a car to grab something. A walker comes and bites you on the arm. Tragic, terrible. That's life. It happened. From that point on, what do? Do you cut your arm off? Do you hide it? How do your people around you interact with it? So there's a character development of it. So more directly, I like a breadth of different types of games and different and some people say because you get bored. It's not because I get bored, it's because I have different interests and I like different things. At its core, I play D&D, it's medieval style fantasy. That's what I like. But even within medieval style fantasy, I have my Lord of the Rings, which is true to the IP. I have role playing. Then I have my Cormyrean Gambit on Saturday mornings with you guys. That can be silly and slapstick. Doors hitting people. They're really silly. So it just depends on the group and how they play. And you who've played pretty much all of them, Sonia, each group has its own characters and its own people and how they do things. I mean, even within Mohorand on Thursday morning is a different game than Lord of the Rings on Monday evenings. The bi-weekly game is different than Doom Forgotten Realms.
Hmm.
So you see what I'm saying, Sonia?
Yeah, no, I mean, those are different games altogether
And
with different systems too.
I guess, to answer it in the opposite way, the games I don't like, and I think I said this already, is players that bring stuff about their character that I know nothing about and I don't understand how that even happened. That drives me nuts. Characters that all of a sudden have items that they didn't have before. All of a sudden, oh, I have this. Where did that come from? I didn't know you had a +3 sword. I don't remember that. And by the way, you just imbalanced the whole at 4th level, you just imbalanced everything. That doesn't work. And then the people that go out of their way, like when you're trying to have a serious moment, serious dialogue, and somebody that goes out of their way to just break up the story and ruin the moment just because they feel it's appropriate. It's kind of like you're having a really nice, a very important conversation about somebody's coming to you with a problem, this and that. And then somebody comes over here and starts making jokes, even though they're hearing it, they start making jokes and being sarcastic about your situation. It's kind of like, dude, that was awkward. What are you doing?
Right.
So again, and that goes back to your fourth wall comment, but I have to be patient and I have to just either ignore it, address it, or go around it, if that makes sense. So
I finally put on that band because I was just laying there. And I was like, oh my God.
So
I jam.
other than obviously me, who has been your favorite character?
that is not a fair question. Because if I say it's you, or if I say it's Vespa, or if I say it's Macchiato, not the player,
The familiar.
it's not fair because somebody's going to be bothered by, oh, you have favorites, and that's not a fair question.
But I'm all time. Like you've run how many games in
Oh.
your like?
My favorite, I mean,
How about the favorite character you've played? That way you don't have to worry about that.
I played as Mador. Mador. It's a necromancer.
And you played him as a player, or you played him as a GM?
Yes. Both.
Both.
Because at first he was a player from a long time ago. He was a wizard. I played him when I was in the army. He was a necromancer. And every time he killed something, he harvested. It's like, oh, I want those nails. Oh, I want some of that blood. So he was just that character. He's just crazy dude. And he would go in guns blazing, even though he had 4 hit points. He was crazy. But then later on, I needed an NPC to help the players because there was only 2 or 3 of them, and they were new.
You just said.
What was
Hold on. Sorry, no, that wasn't me.
Oh, okay. And he needed to carry the party a little bit. And then once they got the 5th or 6th level, I took him out of the game. So you're no longer here, because GMs playing a character in a game is never good, because then it just gets in the way of the story and it takes away from the stories. When I do that, and I do that today, I had one game where I'm playing a character for another player who's no longer with us. I keep him in the background, and I ask the players, what do you think this character should do? You know what he is, you know he's a paladin, you know he's a fighter, you know he's a wizard, cleric, whatever. What do you want that person to do? And then I will execute that. And if it's something that could be helpful, like, you know what, I think the cleric should do a level 2 cure on you. What do you think? And then we'll do that. Otherwise, most of the time it's like, what do you want me to do? So I guess the best way to answer it is, what are some of my favorite moments that a character's done? Because every character is different. Everybody has highs and lows. Emma throwing a fit and having a half an hour long rant. That was one of my favorite gaming moments. Roz and Bobdor having a fight because Roz looks at Bobdor and says, "You're not a girly man. You don't." And then they have a fist fight. That was an amazing session. The players giving Theo a hard time because now, quote unquote, Theo has a girlfriend, and no, he doesn't. And then kind of have, at first it was okay. I mean, it got a little weird later on, but at first it was funny, and that was kind of fun. Let me see. Let me go through the games. So, the rock thing. Oh, Gem. Oh my gosh, Gorash in the fastball special, picking up Gem and throwing Gem to catch the wizard that was trying to run away and stab him. That was amazing. That was an amazing moment. Everybody being upset that Batty died. Like, oh my gosh, Batty died. And everybody's like, oh.
But then nobody was upset every time Macchiato died in that one game, because he died so often.
That's not true. When the rogue is trying to interrogate somebody and uses a crossbow and then crits, it's like, dude, you just tore his leg off.
That was amazing.
Alien RPG, because I can't roll dice. The queen mother that was already almost dead, and the grunt, the guy who has the support bear, or he's the support marine, comes over and stabs the queen to death. That was like, okay. And then I'm rolling acid splash, and I'm like, yeah, I didn't need to roll that. I could have just said it happened. But either way, it was just one of those iconic moments. But from a game mechanic standpoint, it was terrible, because that shouldn't happen. If you just look at the size of a queen, look at the size of a human, that queen should tear it up. The human would have to get really lucky, or being in a little, a loader, heavy loader. But either way, even though the loader moves really slow, the moment for the player was amazing. It was amazing, and everybody was like, yeah, and it was exciting. And that moment when he did that, the whole group was excited, and that was good. Lord of the Rings, there's just too many to count. Um, when they went into Carn-Dûm, I think it was Carn-Dûm, and they were in that hallway trying to escape, and they did a retreat action, shoot, retreat, and just keep them from attacking. And it was great, but because they were going to get overrun, and they ran away, just like in Moria. So that for me in my head, and I never expressed this before, but for me, I was reliving my version of Moria, even though I didn't set it up that way. It turned into that way, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is Moria. As there
Is that where we set the fire on the way and we kept backing out and putting fire in the way and ran?
something like that, yeah, something like that. But that was my Moria moment, and that was a lot of fun. Was another one. Let's see, move forward. Wilhelm Reach. Um, okay, no problem with Dule. Um, the Wilhelm Reach. Trying to remember what happened there. Um, there was sometimes when Corman's like, I'm not going in there, no, stay right here. Every time he does that in my head, I'm laughing. I'm like, he is the most careful dude. I'm gonna stand right here as the ranger. I'm gonna watch you guys do what you do. And Bob Dore does the same thing. He'll stand there and like, you guys figure that out. Okay. Another moment, Strahd. I'm gonna get that old lady. Y'all, and whenever I would say she was just crossing the street and you beat up that old lady. And it creates a reaction, and the character's like, she was terrible. She was eating kids, and she needed to go. And Shaw's just hyper focus on beating up old ladies. Like, come on, stop it. No, they're hags. They want to be kids, but they're old ladies. Show them some love. Take them some cookies or something. And it's like, no. And that whole interaction. That's a lot of fun. I think is that all of the games? I don't think that's all of them.
Telefarm,
So far,
there's Cimmerian,
it's good.
there's
Oh, and Dark Sun.
Morhaime,
Dark Sun
Dark Sun.
really.
I wish I could have stayed in Dark Sun. I was having a lot of fun with that early
Oh,
with that campaign.
that one is interesting because that was one of the like, okay, I got to grab all this stuff, I got to put it over here, and I got to run the game. But the cool thing is the players are having fun. The most interesting moment was when Crumb died, and the Dre were like, "Hey, we're gonna have some food. Do you guys want some?" And the players like, "Sure." And it's like, did I just do that as a GM? Okay, and then
I will have to say that I did not have any crumb. I refused to eat my friend.
the Gladiator from the Gladiator, and that was kind of gross, but it happened. Oh, and the way Roz as a sentient zombie, a flesh-eating zombie, played into his character and said, "You know what? That siren that just tried to hurt Theo, I want its hands." And he's walking around with hands in his mouth. I was like, okay. And that was pretty interesting. I think they made good role play. My Vecna game, the once a month Vecna game, those players are doing really good. They're having a lot of fun. But yeah, there's I guess it's not really about a single character. It's um moments of greatness that characters have. Because everybody can play a bad character one day and a great character the next day, and it's the same character. Um, and I was telling him, Sonia, before you came on, how I was a bad player for a while. I was a pretty bad player because my expectation of GMs, it's not even about the rules or having rules knowledge. It's about game management that I had issues with, and I had to teach myself to stop being a dick. And excuse my French, just play the game
Still
and
working on that in life myself.
play the game, roll the game, make it comfortable for everyone,
Yeah.
and just keep it going, and don't have zero expectations as a player and as a GM.
I mean, that's got to be hard to do. I still see you struggle with that a little bit. I still see you struggle because you're so GM. Your GM is not going away, and I
I
think
could
you
see
have
how that
a
would be
hard
hard to turn
time
off,
sometimes.
right?
Yeah,
I could see that would be hard to
it's
turn that off.
constantly analyzing what is being done, how it's done, what players should do versus
Well,
opening up your imagination. And I think it's a difficult thing to do, I think. And I
well,
see it it's not only with you. I see it with other people I play with that are GMs. I see the same thing happening in real time. I'm watching the both of you like this. I see it. I'm like, it's funny.
well,
It doesn't. disrupt things. I just see the struggle from a third party point of view.
Well, the other thing is, so I was like, so this is a personality flaw. I had that problem with karate, teaching, being a martial arts instructor, is I would see bad karate and I say bad karate, and I would just like, I become real critical. And then I started to realize there's something to learn there. It's either something I wouldn't do, I would do it differently, or it's something I would do. So I had to teach myself as a karate instructor, it's like just watch, nod your head, and then ask, did you want some feedback? Did you want something different? And I've done that. I did a martial arts black belt test. The kid was getting stuck on against the wall, and the instructor told the kid to jump up and come down like this on his arm, and I'm like, I said, can I get feedback to, and it wasn't my dojo, it was not my test, it wasn't my student, but I felt an obligation that I had to help this kid because he was going to hurt himself. So I said, do what he told you to do. So I'm holding him like this, and the kid jumps up, and I just hold the kid up, and I hold him against the wall, and now he's basically hung himself. And the kid's like this. I said, don't do that. Don't jump. Don't ever jump. I said, simply do this one. So basically that one that I teach where they come across the arm like here and then go in or elbow or even grab or, different manipulations to do things like that. And and I added that it's like, it's not just static where they're standing. They're literally grabbing you and, and they're trying to take you down or hold you here and you have to react quickly. So in that is one thing. So how did I translate that to GMing? Well, first of all, I wouldn't do it today. But if I have a really good relationship with the GM, I would like, hey, can I talk to you about last session? I said, you did this and this and this. Why did you do it that way? Can you help me understand what was your thinking behind it? If it's a story element that you don't want me to do, just say none of your business, go away. You can do that. GMs can do that. No, I can't tell you. And I've done that to you plenty of times, Vespa. Like, no, I can't talk to you about it because it's a story thing that's going on. But other, as far as from GM to GM, I said, I need some feedback to understand why you're doing that so that I can wrap my head around that. And so then I have that conversation. But otherwise, leave it alone. It's their game. You're a guest. You're a guest at their table. Have fun and let the game and then be a good steward to the game. Help the people around you and do like that. And don't be a dick at the game. True.
I felt your story about because I taught martial arts for years too. You may have talked about that. I felt that I related to that on so many levels. And that's one of the things, like if you've been doing something for a super long time and then you see somebody else like teaching something similar or something, and you're trying so hard to bite your tongue and be like, no, don't do it that way. Right. But like you have to like pull yourself back and almost like you said, like ask them after, hey, why was your reasoning behind X, Y, and Z? And that's one of the hardest things I've had to learn as I got older was just taking that step back. But I did have one final question for you because I know you've talked about it a few times, and I'm just curious exactly what it is. When you talk about Adventure League games, what exactly is Adventure League? Because nobody's ever explained that to me. I don't know what Adventure League is, and it sounds like an adventure.
Adventure League is the open play platform that Wizards of the Coast has for game stores. So what they do is they have a place so game stores could open up their store a certain day a week, like Immortals Inc. here in Parma, Ohio. Not Parma, Rocky River, Ohio, over on Center Ridge Road. They have open play on Wednesdays and I think Saturdays now, where players can go in and they can drop in any game, and they have a character that they have. And these are official Adventure League characters. These characters can be played anywhere in the world where there's an Adventure League. It's all because they follow the rules within what it means, the character creation, the character development of the game. So you can only have certain magic items that within the adventure. You can only have certain things, and then you fall into 5 tiers, 1 through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through, and so on and so forth, something like that. I think 1 through 5. I don't know. I don't remember. But anyway, they have the 5 different tiers. So 5 divided by 1 through 4, so on. But it's an opportunity to people to just jump in at any game and play and learn the game. And the GMs, for the most part, are very, very good at it. They're very good teachers and everything. In fact, one of the GMs that we played with was actually one of my best teachers, as a GM, because I learned a lot from him, watching him, and I've used some of the stuff that so here's the thing, a lot of the stuff that I use isn't from me, it's from watching other people. I can't take credit for something someone else taught me without even knowing they taught me it, because I observe. And
Yeah.
he plays in two of my games now. He plays an Alien RPG and he plays a different Ravenloft game, in person. So that environment, where you can go in and play, and the cool thing too is like, you know what, I didn't like you, or I want to try a different GM, you can go to a different table. As long as they have space, they can go to different tables. So it's just a cool way for people to play. Sessions are usually 2 to 3 hours. They're very short. They're very encounter specific. They can be railroad, but it's a place to play. And for new players, it's not a bad thing. I think it has its weaknesses and it has its strengths. As
Got
far
it.
as a paid GM for myself, you're guaranteed a spot. You're guaranteed that I'm going to be here because you've paid for that time. And it's my obligation to present this to you. And a lot of people struggle with that because it's a hobby. Well, that box set right there is $200.
Right.
If I was to go get it new right now, this
Yep.
book is anywhere from $50 to $75. It
Right.
costs money. And I've been doing it for so long and I have so much stuff and it doesn't all get used. Now I get to use it all in a bunch of different places. So I mean, when I say places, I mean different games. So
Yeah.
it's a long time, and WotC has said the people that spend the most money are the dungeon masters. They really are. We dungeon masters spend a lot of money, and
Of course you do.
some players will give dungeon masters anything, or they'll buy the module and say, "Here, this is for you, but can you run it for me?" But I think there's more to it than that, because there's a time element. There's a lot of time that
Yeah.
goes into GM. Even though I try to keep my prep to an hour to 2 hours per session, just to keep myself sane. Like setting up a new game takes several hours. Because
Right. Of course.
here's the campaign. I mean, if I already run it, I already have the prep in a notebook, so I just pull it out and review it. But even then, that's still another hour. But a brand new game takes anywhere to 2 to 4 hours to set up. That's minimum, because you have the starting, then you have the end, and then you have everything in between, and you create these plot points, not for the sake of railroading, but the sake of the story. And if the players decide to go, okay, they're in part A, part two, and then they decide to jump part six, and I've had that happen. I've had a group of players go from part 4 to part 13 in one session,
Oh man.
because they called on the goddess who was really behind everything that's going on, and she showed up because they rolled 17 or higher or something like that. I'm like, okay, she's here. And like, well, and then they started asking questions, and then it's what's really going on. And because she was summoned and she was under a geese type effect, she was obligated to tell them.
Oh,
They just
man.
jumped 9 chapters. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, you guys are here now. Well, are we 9th level now? No, I have to adjust everything down, but it doesn't matter. That's just the way the players win. But
Right.
that said, it takes a while to set everything up, and so that time's money,
Hmm.
and if people want to run free games, that's your business. But I'm doing my thing. Let's not hate on each other, because we're
Right.
the same thing. We run good games, and
Right.
it that way. And like you were saying, some people don't want to go in person. Like in Leisure League, they'll never go there, or their schedule doesn't allow them to. And here's the other
Yeah.
thing. If it takes half an hour to drive there, and then half an hour to drive
Hmm.
back, that's an hour of your time. If all you have to do is sit there, eat, get all your stuff done, you're saving yourself an hour. You log in and you play.
Yep.
And for a lot of people, it's not the same, because everything is now digitized, VTTs. Well, I put things on the table for people to play, and that's the other thing is I will go ahead and where's that? Is this gonna come up at all? Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
mean, you found the creative solution to that, right? That's why I think the other reason why, like, I was never like I played a game one time before I found your games that had like the tabletop simulator and stuff like that. And I'm old school, and I was like, I don't really feel this. I feel like I'm just playing an old '90s game. It didn't feel right to me, right? But
Right,
then when I found yours and it had the miniatures, it had the table, it gives you that feeling of being at that live table
right,
that is so difficult. Like you're saying, it's not even just getting people to show up. It's like schedules, it's this, it's traffic, it's this the other thing. And like with me, I have my kids, right? Like I couldn't bring my kids to a live game, but I can sit there and get up in the morning, play the game, get my kids breakfast, make sure they're not setting the house on fire before I go to work. And
right,
I still have that feeling of being at an actual table,
right.
which I think is huge.
Now VTTs are fine. I have no hate for any GM that wants to do roll
Right.
20 or they do alchemy or anything, or even the new D&D Beyond one that they're gonna push. I don't, but I like this, and I have this stuff.
Right. You already have it.
If I use a VTT, this stuff is just gonna gather dust, and
Hmm.
keep it then. I mean, I'm gonna keep it because I'm a collector. But but then at the same time, here's the other part of it. Those little forges there, I painted those.
Right. You created it.
Hobby is I didn't create them, I just painted them. I got them like that.
Yeah.
And I painted them. So there's a fun element. It's like I can
Hmm.
create something with my, these Dwarven Forge tiles I didn't create. The minis, I did these minis, most of them. Did I print any of these? No, none of those I printed. But the forges are FDM printed by somebody else. But I painted them. And then, you put it all together and you create these beautiful scenes. Well, relatively beautiful scenes for players to participate in, and then you give them that, even if they're at home, especially in the winter and stuff like that, or late in the evening, they can sit there and have that experience. So that's what I try to bring with what I do. So there's that.
And I agree with that. I think it just brings a different, vibe to it. It brings like people like myself who grew up on the old school version of it. It's molding the two things together to where you can have that experience but have it use the modern technology to allow us to do that. And I think that brings people more into the game. I think like having the tabletop simulator and stuff like that, I get it. And again, people who want to play with it, that's fine. But with having the real table with the real minis and the things like that, I think it gets people more involved personally. I think it gets you more, you're more focused on it, you're more invested. It just feels more real to me. Again, it could just be because I'm in my 40s, but it just feels more like the old school. You're in it. You're taking yourself out of the world. You're in this world now. Here is your miniature. Here's the big dragon physically in front of you. Here's the corner you have to walk around. Like all of that, it makes it more engrossing to me as opposed to, oh, we're gonna move our mouse now. You do that every day at work. Here we go. We're gonna do it again. You know what I mean? Like it brings you into that atmosphere, which I appreciate. I know it's a lot of work, so I will never knock anybody who gets paid for doing this because it is a lot of work. It's not even just the prep. I mean, you set up the tables, you paint the miniatures, you do these different things that creates that universe that your players are going into. And that's what separates a lot of people. Anybody can pop up a virtual tabletop and load a map, right? Like you can do that. But it's that old school feeling that brings people like myself into it, that brings me back to the days of getting everybody together in college to play D&D at night on a random Thursday. It gives that feeling back to it, which I appreciate.
What were you gonna say, Sonia? I saw you come on.
I was just as accident.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I mean, it's just all about fun. Yeah.
Mhm.
Want to ask or throw out there?
No, that was it, man. I hope that this can give people, like if you're able to post it and stuff, I hope it gives people a different take on the game and different knowledge and stuff because I think it's stuff that isn't talked about a lot out there that would get more people into it personally.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and I appreciate you guys bring the idea of you, Dule, you Monk and Dule to bring it up and want me to do this, and that's nice of you guys to encourage me to do that because I was like, that's kind of weird, but we did it, and that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I got to say, whatever people do at the table, that's their business. However, whatever
Hmm.
games you want to run, whatever the games that are fun, again, it's as long as it's safe and it's fun for everybody involved. cares? Just play and
Right.
and and stop hating on each other. Let the GMs that want to run free games. Let the GM
Absolutely.
get paid for this and make a living out of it and provide good quality entertainment on a consistent basis. Let them,
Hmm.
you know, and the cool thing is if they're doing it out of the love and passion for the game, and they're not caught up in the whole corporate world that we
Yep.
are unhappy about. I'm happy running games. I'm happy playing D&D, Alien RPG, Blade Runner, all those games. I'm really happy. I mean, going to conventions if I can get there again, you know, um, those things. It's an awesome thing where you're just playing games. And so what? They complain about baseball players and getting millions,
Yep.
but they'll watch it.
Yep. Well,
They'll
that's the thing.
go
People
to the
complain
bar.
about that because they don't get to do it.
They go to the bar and they pay all this money to watch
Hmm.
it, or they'll go to and the thing is, well, it costs too much. Well, you're paying $40-$50 for a 1 hour escape room,
Yep.
$20-$25 for 4 hours. Where's the value?
Exactly.
You know, and
Exactly.
and then I like Dule was saying, I'll sit with you if you're game. I'll sit with you outside of the time and go over your
Hmm.
build it and things like that and address anything you had. And I will bring you into the game and help you participate. So people talk about cost. Well, things are expensive now. Did you get your nails done this week? Oh,
Right. It's more than $20.
All relative to
it's all
what you
relative to
find.
willing to spend
Yep.
on it. And the thing is, I say this and it sounds rude. To some people are going to find it rude the way I'm saying it, but the fact is we have choices to make, and I'm not going to get into the economics of the world financial situation, but if people are still want their entertainment and they can choose to go to the movies or stay at home and stream or go to the library and get it to free or pay a GM to run a game for them or go to Adventure League and play for 2 hours,
Right.
entirely their choice. Obviously I'm biased because Adule said this earlier about me being a good GM. I know I'm one of the best GMs in Northeast Ohio. I know that for a fact. Am I the best GM in Northeast Ohio? Not by far. I'm pretty good at it. Have I had bad games? Have I had flaws? Have I upset people? You're damn right. My thing is own it, learn from it, be a
Yep.
better, and always know there's something to learn in every game that you play, whether it's a situation, whether it's a mechanic, a rule, because I am not a rules expert. I don't know every word in the thing. I just don't have the mind for that. I know all the important stuff, the mechanics and things, and the books are right there for me to look at. It helps when you know it ahead of time, sure. But I'm not, it's like I'm busy writing a story. I'll pick that up as we play. Like the brand new 2024 rules. We'll go back and look, say, hey, this is what it says. Let's clarify it. If we've already gone past that, we'll come, and I'll say this, going forward, this is the way it's going to be but for this situation, we're going to go. And sometimes just say, throw the rule out. That was cool. That ball came down, hit him on the chest. I don't care.
Exactly.
Again, back to the whole confidence thing. I mean, I know how good I am. I really do. And that's why I can go to conventions and my games are sold out. Always,
Right.
100% of the time, my games are sold out and never have a mistake. I've had players ask to jump in because they know my name and they jump in and they understand what I bring to the table. That said, I'm not a Matt Mercer, even though the Matt Mercer effect have caused some unrealistic expectations. I'm not Black Dice Society. That is probably my favorite GM. He is the best. I would, if I could afford it, I would go play D&D in the castle. I would pay 10 grand to go play with him one weekend. It's an experience.
That's awesome.
For me, it would be going to Disney World. That would be going.
Right.
But if I had 10 grand, I'd rather go to Puerto Rico and spend a month there. But anyway, but the thing is if I had to spend money, I would go to him. Chris Perkins. Chris Perkins is he breaks rules all the time. For
I
me,
love Chris Perkins watching his games, man. Those are the best.
he's an awesome GM.
Awesome GM.
I've watched him play, and I'm like, that's not how it's written in the rule book.
Nope.
And
Like,
I
especially you
watched,
watch Acquisitions Incorporated. It's like that just went off the rails. I don't even know
and
what
I
rule that
watched
is,
him
but it's
like,
fine.
That is awesome.
Hmm.
The guy from How to Be a Great GM, watch his video.
Yeah,
He's
I
in,
have. You told me about him. He's great.
he's in your face. And
Hmm.
I like him better than Colville. No disrespect to Colville. Colville's amazing. As far
Yeah.
as learning about how the game is, maybe it's the presentation. I don't know. But I like How to Be a Great GM more than I do Colville. And Colville's a great writer. He's a great
Yeah.
GM in his own world. But I like, and so um if I was to pattern myself is to have the spontaneity of Matt Mercer with the brilliance of Black Dice Society and David B. Walters. I think his name, that's his name. Have the brilliance of David B. Walters with Matt Mercer's improvisation. If I was to pattern myself behind the GM, that's my goal. Is to be that kind of guy. And then have great combat and when it's necessary. So there you go.
Love it.
All right. If you have nothing else, have a great day. Sonia,
Absolutely.
and
All right, bye guys.
soon. And thanks for the idea. This was awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. All right, Sam. I'll talk to you.
Yep. Bye bye.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.